I don't know if that's something that you've considered. There's a lot of, most of us are engaged in our day-to-day work and our day-to-day activities. We don't always question what is it that we're doing. If we can take what we're doing and turn that into a spiritual activity. So firstly, what is a spiritual activity? Let's start there. Anybody?
Well, a spiritual activity is something that grows us from within. It expands our consciousness.
Right. I fully agree with you there. The Bhagavad Gita also gets into talking about how when you're engaged in spiritual activity, not only does it grow you from within, but it also frees you from karma and brings you towards liberation. And it treats that as the ultimate goal of life. Um, so a lot of the modern day New Age thinkers talk about personal growth, self-development, and the Bhagavad Gita doesn't really talk about that. It's not, the ancients never really considered self-development in the sense that we consider it now, which is more from a psychological viewpoint, healing our wounds and looking, and going into all our past and looking at, that's the whole thing that psychology started from the time of Freud onwards. But prior to that, there was no such talk of healing the mind or the ego. There was a way to harness it, to tame it, but the goal was really to become free of it. Now, personally, if you ask me, I'm a believer in both. I think they're both useful. I think we can use what modern day psychology and self-help teaches us to live a better life right here on earth while we're here. And we can use the teachings of the ancient times to uh, free ourselves from the cycle of birth and death as well. So, yeah, give me your thoughts. Is that balance something that, appeals to you?
Yeah, I want to make a comment on that because I'm in my late 20s, so a lot of my friends are hitting that age as well where they're like, I need to figure out why I feel the way I feel, and they kind of get deeper and deeper in their emotions, and they can't get out of the emotions. So they're
Right?
thinking about them constantly, and it only amplifies them.
Yeah.
And I don't see a resolution in just that.
No.
So I like the idea of finding, yes, be aware of your emotions, but not just spend all day talking about them and getting consumed by them. I like the idea of being liberated from
Right.
those types of things.
So what I find is that we need to take wisdom from wherever we can get it. And it really helps to be able to um, combine these things together in a way that really works. The problem with this is this: if you try to, Einstein said this, you try to solve a problem at the level at which it was created, well, that's insanity, because it's not going to change. That's not going to happen. So if you try to heal the mind with the mind, then unfortunately, I don't think you're going to get too far. You'll make some progress. You'll have um, a better life in some ways, but you won't really have a mastery over your life. I feel that that comes when you can actually, instead of, like you're saying, Andrea, be locked in the emotions and then be trying to solve it from that place, but you can actually stop and observe your emotions. If you can actually stop and observe your thoughts, and instead of buying into them, start to be able to notice if they are in fact correct or accurate or not. And can you then steer them? Can you be the wise guide for your thoughts and for your emotions? Can you be the person who's there to hold space for them, but not necessarily diving into them or believing them or becoming identified with them? How does that sound to you? Who's that? Okay, I'm hearing this strange sound.
I
I
didn't hear
think
an answer, but she held a knife up, so that's
Oh,
a
okay.
good sign.
She had a knife up. Okay.
I think that makes a lot of sense in that they're not mutually exclusive. And I think what Andrea is sharing and what you were talking about, Rohit, that the awareness is the gateway.
Mhm.
And it's from that position that we can go deeper.
Right.
And, there are certain branches of like traditional psychology, like existential or like acceptance and commitment therapy, which is very similar to
Mm.
more of like an Eastern perspective that encourages like observation of thoughts and feelings, not letting thoughts and feelings kind of run you. And I like what Andrea was saying, it can kind of become like navel gazing, where we just become so consumed by ourselves that we miss the bigger picture. And so, but I think aligned with what we've said in this group and in the other group, awareness of self has to come first. And so once you're kind of like self-aware, then you can progress to these deeper levels and extend your view out from, any single experience.
Yeah, I feel it's like gradually starting to lift off from the ground. Noticing the different, like if you're in an apartment, then noticing first that you were in a room. From the room, you're in an apartment. From an apartment, you're above the trees. From above the trees, then you're in the clouds, and above the clouds. So you see yourself rising in this way, progressively moving out. As you observe your thoughts and your emotions, you're able to step away and realize that this is not reality. This is not who I am. I am the person witnessing these thoughts and emotions. I am the one who's having these thoughts and emotions. So yeah, great point. And I think a lot of people really need this, but don't know where to turn. There's not that many um, psychologists, at least, who, like you said, Kara, there are people who are aware of this branch of psychology, but they're few and far between. And then again, most of what people turn to is not even psychologists. They turn to self-help books, and YouTube and Instagram, and that's the place they're turning to get their information. So yeah,
It
if you know
also
people who
feels
benefit, let them know. Yeah.
it also feels like that the journey is probably a departure from relying on the mind and
Yes.
relying more on your heart, and that the mind awareness is it's a pathway of landmines, and that to align it with your heart and let your heart actually guide,
Yeah,
that's where you find your freedom.
that's right. When we say heart, it's important to know that uh, for a lot of people, because the heart has been identified with romanticism, they tend to kind of think of it that way. And I know what you're saying, Mariah, is more about that place within us that is, um, some people call it the wise self. Others would say it's the soul. But it's that place in us that is that can actually witness our thoughts and guide them, lovingly guide them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just as a matter for anyone who is not familiar with that kind of language, I want to be really clear. We're not talking about some romanticism out here. Um, but it is a place of heart, because that is actually the place of true love. It is the place of from where true love actually originates. We seek true love in the world, thinking that somebody can be our ideal lover. Oh, that can sometimes be a tough struggle. But true love exists right here within us. And as long as we're willing to peel the layers of our mind and emotions, we'll find it right there. So, coming to Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, text number 28. I think that's where we. No, let's start with 27. The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature. So there's a lot in here. The first part, I think, is not difficult to understand. The soul is actually dormant within us. That part that Mariah referred to as the heart is actually dormant for most of us. It's our mind that is active, our emotions that are playing. But the true heart, the heart within the heart, as the Sufis call it, that part is dormant. So the soul bewildered, but now it's overcome by the ego. And this is by design. The soul is kept dormant until you choose it. You must choose it. You must desire it. You must long for it. And then you will find your way to it. Till that time, it stays quiet, just like a passive listener, an observer, watching, allowing you to do whatever you want to do, giving you the free will to be and do and have anything you desire. So that hopefully one day you'll come to the point where you realize all that you have and all that you desire still never satisfied you completely. That there was this longing for something more. It makes me think about people like, I don't know if you all know her, Elizabeth Taylor, married I think 6 to 8 times, and still in search for the ideal love. And there have been many more since then. I don't think she was the last, but she may have been one of the early ones to have walked on that journey. But we are searching for more. And this search for more leads us to wealth. It leads us to love. It leads us to more fun, to more adventure, to more of everything. And ultimately we stop and say, what the hell's going on? There's got to be something beyond this too. Unfortunately, most people land up in religion at that time. But the real more is not something you'll find outside. It's right here. It was hidden in here all along. So the soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of the ego is what thinks itself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature. Now, you may wonder, does this mean that we are puppets? We are just, being made to do things? I don't think so. I don't think that's what it's saying here. When it says that these are done by the influences of material nature. So what are those influences? We have our society. We have the way our parents raised us. We have all the media and everything else. We have our own mind, our thoughts, our emotions, our friends. All of those forces together actually cause us to behave in a certain way, to think in a certain way. A lot of people think that they are independent thinkers. Rarely will you find that. Rarely will you find someone who's truly thinking outside the box. Most are thinking within that box. Tell me your thoughts here. Is it possible to think outside of the paradigm that you grew up in? Is it possible to, and how do you do it? What are your thoughts on stepping outside of your cultural biases, out of your religious biases, out of your social biases, or conditioning, if you want to use that word? How do you do it?
I don't have the whole answer, but what we did in the Inner Revolution group that Saturday, not to give it away, but you asking us to
Give it away. It's okay. I don't care.
you having us write down who we are, right? And
Right.
honestly, I felt like I know where this is going, but it's still like ruined me a little bit because you had us just write a list, just keep going, write how you would describe yourself or how you would define yourself. And then you had us get rid of that list, rip it up, and now start a new list, answer the same question. And I'm like, oh man, so now I can't use any of those things. So
what Andrea's talking about is an activity we did in our Saturday group, which is the Inner Evolution group that I've just started. Last 2 Saturdays we had our first meetings, and we're going to go on as a mentoring group for the next months. So in that, I had them do this activity where I said, who are you? Write a list of, and you can do this at home if you like, write a list of all the things that you think you are. Take 5 minutes, write fast. When you're done, tear up the list, throw it away. And now ask yourself, outside of that, who are you?
Right. And it was that, doing that for really for the first time. And my ego mind was like, I know exactly where this is going. And it's still, but actually doing it was what made the difference.
Yeah.
Like we can talk about it all day, but actually doing it was what made me aware, like, wow, it is really hard.
Yeah. With all the layers of who we think we are, your physical self, your mental self, your hobbies, your interests, your past, your dreams of your future, one by one, write all that down, rip it up, tear it, and throw it away. Start again. Now who are you? Write all that down, rip it up, throw that away. Now who are you? Keep going. This can actually be done as a group activity as well. But I modified it to make it into something you do on paper. But do that at home and see where you land up. Keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it until there is nothing left. And that nothing, become friends with that. Find out what that nothing is. Once you've ripped it all and put it all away, find out what is that nothing. That is the journey. So that's what he's saying, that the person thinks themselves the doer of activities. I think I have done so many things. I have this education, I have this job, I do these hobbies, I have these interests, da 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 da. When you meet someone, you go on a date, you tell them all these things, right? When you make friends, that's what you do. You tell them, this is what I'm interested in, this is what I do, this is who I am. This is my work, these are my hobbies, this is my story, this is my life. Throw it all away. Now who are you? Then he goes on to say, one who is in
Sorry,
knowledge.
1 sec. Can I say something?
Absolutely. Yes, come on
So
in.
your question was, is it possible to think outside the box?
Yes.
And the box, your culture, conditioning, and so on.
Yes.
So I think, yes, it is entirely possible as long as we can get a perspective from higher up where we can see the box,
Lovely. Beautiful way of saying it.
We have to rise above to see that we are in this box.
Yeah. If you're
And
in
that
the box, it's hard to know.
otherwise it's hard to know exactly, because you're so enmeshed in it. You feel this is how it is, this is how life is, there isn't any other way. And then you are being run by the complex of ego at a societal level, family level, personal level, whatever it is, and you don't know any better. But in those lucid moments where you do an exercise like what you described, or you have a spontaneous insight, or a friend says something and something breaks open, I think we need to really pause and allow that learning which wants to come through to come through. All of us have these moments. Some of us, like when I was younger, I didn't even know it was a moment that I needed to pay attention to. But something would lodge itself in my consciousness. And then when I had the time, and if I was lucky, I would get an opening. But now that I'm a lot older, I now seize these moments because I find them extremely precious, because they shift something inside my mind, which enables me to see the conditioning that is actually running this world. So I had one of these spontaneous moments 2-3 years ago that I just want to briefly describe. I was just sitting on a park bench after my daily walk, and I just had this insight that I have never had an original thought. In my whole entire life, I have never had an original thought. Everything that I think is a product of what my parents told me, what my teachers told me, what society says, what I read in the media, and how I want to project myself, and so on. And that was a real breakthrough. After that, I was able to discern when an original thought came into my consciousness. It happens very rarely, maybe like once a month or once in 2, 3 months, but I can catch it and I say, wow, I haven't read this anywhere. I haven't heard this from anybody. I haven't lived with this particular knowledge. Wow, and then I really put my attention on it and I make a note. If I can't sit with it in that moment, I sit with it later.
Right.
So this is my offering as an answer to your question.
Nandini, thank you so much. That is so beautiful. Thank you. I relate to that a lot. I started a process like that back in the year 2000 and kept writing for 15 years. It was one of the most powerful things that ever happened to me. And I relate totally to what you're saying. I had not had anything like that happen. I had had people tell me, listen to that inner voice of yours. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? I don't hear no inner voices. You're just, making stuff up. I have no clue to access this. It took a long time to get there. But when I did, it was so addictive. I just wanted to keep going back and a lot. And then it would keep coming in from time to time, just with something out of the blue. Like I'd never thought about that. And I'd write it down. And I love what you're doing. Just write it down, record it, because the more you record it, the more you write it down, the more will come to you. The more insight will flow through you. And here's the other part that will happen, because this is what my experience was, is that the more it came, the more it started to change me from the inside out. Because the information was going straight into the subconscious. So I encourage all of you to listen to that inner voice, that little quiet, soft whisper within you. It is the only thing that observes things from a different perspective than your mind does. So somehow, if you want to escape the clutches of the mind, look out for those little gentle whispers. They will come to you. They have been coming to you all your life. It's just that you weren't listening. I wasn't listening until I did. And then it was like, oh my God, this is phenomenal. So stay ready, stay alert, stay tuned. It will talk to you. And then you, like you said, Nandini, you will start to see things in a whole different way, in a way you've never done before. Your life will drastically change. The aim of all that I do is to help people get to that point. And so it's wonderful to have your affirmation, Nandini. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I also ask a question on that stanza there?
Yeah.
This is more for clarification. What's the Gita saying when it talks about the three modes of material nature? What are those three modes?
Yeah, there are, see, when it refers to three modes of material nature, it's talking about Sattvagun, Rajagun, and Tamagun. These are the forces that are literally the state of our consciousness. Okay. The state of our consciousness is either in the state of sattva. Sattva is the mode of goodness. In the mode of goodness, people aspire for more spiritual growth. They seek peaceful places. They want to be, the music, everything they seek is towards peace and knowledge and wisdom, right? Towards goodness, towards kindness, towards compassion. Those are the qualities of sattva. The qualities of rajas or rajagun are about passion, doing. And you'll find most people in cities especially are engaged in this aspect, which is rajas or rajagun, rajas. And it's all about doing. You're going from one thing to the next, Even on the holiday, even on the weekend, they don't know how to stop and just enjoy and just be and just relax. No, it's hard, very hard. Ask most people who are in the city and engaged in jobs, they're in that mode. Now, the Bhagavad Gita not only goes into this state of consciousness, but it also talks about the things that affect that state of consciousness, from the foods you eat to the things you do. It talks about all kinds of things that affect that state of consciousness.
And that's an interesting point as you're explaining it, because referring to these gunas, there's this idea of like going for a sattvic state, eating sattvic food and everything. So looking at the stanza, it's like it's tying into the ego.
Right.
Even living this life, like say if you're living a sattvic lifestyle,
Right.
it's that stanza saying, hey, that's still ego, dude. So I don't know that.
Yes. Even the mode of goodness, even sattva gun is the ego. It is a higher form of the ego. It's an evolutionary state of the ego, where the ego has got more refined and is you're no longer as possessed with it as the average person is. Um, but you're still not, that's not still the spiritual state. That's still not a state of awakening. That's still not, as we were saying earlier, a state of original thought or perception. That is not a state of freedom. But it is, let's say, it is, don't want to say the pathway there because it's not really. You could go from anything to that enlightened state. You don't have to go this route. But it is a symptom of someone who has made progress on the spiritual path. But it is not the destination of the spiritual path. That is important to understand. So no
Okay.
matter how sattvic you are, no matter how many times how clean your body is, no matter how beautiful and neat and nice your house is, these are all symptoms of sattva gun. No matter how purified your mind is, your pure mind and house and environment and food and all those things are not in and of themselves spiritual. They are a container for the spirituality, but they are not the spirituality. Are you with me, or am I speaking?
No, I like that because it's, I mean, it makes sense to live a sattvic lifestyle because it's almost like there is a container that's going to uphold the spirit.
Right.
But I see the separation now that I never saw that.
One of the things you find is that when you come in touch with spirit, when you really connect with your soul, when you learn how to do that, and you do that through meditation and learning to quiet your mind. But when you do that, just living a sattvic life is not enough. You want to learn to enhance that ability. You want to learn to be able to be there in crowded places, in noisy places, in bars, in restaurants, and still hold that space. You see, the idea is not just so the time when I finally was able to get there, which as I said to you earlier, took ages to get to it because I was stumbling my way through. I had no real guide at that point. I lost out on the guides that I had earlier. They'd kind of like, it's a long story. I'll get into it. But so I was really on my own path, and that's why I was taking forever. But when I got to that, I realized I can do this now in a quiet place. I can do this in nature. But can I do it? What if I'm suddenly put into a noisy place? What if I'm put into a crowded place? What if I'm put into a stressful situation? Can I still do it? And I had to test myself. I had to push myself. I had to find how is it possible to do it even there. So while you talk of the sattvic lifestyle, don't get too caught up in it. So the Brahmins, for example, the priests, they would cultivate sattvic lifestyle, right? But don't get too caught up in that. That's not the ultimate goal. It's a desirable environment, but one should be able to hold one's spiritual center in any environment. So the next chapter, number 28, he says, one who is in knowledge of the absolute truth does not engage himself in the senses and sense gratification, knowing well the difference between work in devotion and work for fruitive results. So knowledge of the absolute, right? One who is in knowledge of the absolute. Remember, knowledge is not the same as realization of the absolute. You may know things, but to live them is a whole different level. Right? A lot of people know things, very knowledgeable, they can articulate all kinds of stuff. But I'll always look out for how much do you live that? How clear are you with the symptoms of that? How much do you really how much in depth do you really get it? And you can only get it when you have, experienced it yourself. So anyway, one who's in knowledge of the absolute truth does not engage in the senses and sense gratification. What this means is this: it's not that you'll never engage in the senses. Of course you will, but you will not make that to be the goal of your life. You will not make that to be um, the purpose of why you live, to enjoy your senses, to have a wonder, just in and of itself. No. So I'm going to tell you something very interesting here. While a lot of the Gita will talk about not being absorbed in sense gratification or kama, kama is desire or lust or greed or any of that stuff, the very same things that are the cause of bondage in the world can also be the cause of liberation. And there's an art to that. There's an art for how to convert the very things of the senses, which if you go down that path, so that becomes the path of hedonism, for example, right? Pleasure for pleasure's sake. Eat, drink, and be merry. La dolce vita, the sweet life. I've taken that theme of La dolce vita, which what the Italians call the sweet life, and taken that and really put it to the other side. There is a whole spiritual side to that, beginning with mindfulness and then going towards savoring. You begin to see and feel and experience the energy within everything. And you begin to relish in the energy that is contained within matter. That could be with the foods you eat, it could be the water you drink, it could be in nature, it could be with a partner. It doesn't mean we reject the world, but rather we find God in the world. And for those who would like to critique that and say, well, you're just trying, talking pantheism, which is God, that God is the world, or God is the universe. No, I'm not just saying that. I'm saying that's one aspect. That's where you can have a direct experience. You can have a direct experience of God in the world. So the very same thing that was the cause of bondage can be the cause of liberation. And learning how to do that, we'll discuss it more at length. I want to continue with the Gita here. So now it goes into what happens with the average person. Bewildered by the modes of material nature, the ignorant fully engage themselves in material activities and become attached. But the wise should not unsettle them, although these duties are inferior due to the performer's lack of knowledge. So one of the first things it's saying is, even as you realize that engaging yourself simply in material activities and enjoying them and becoming attached to them is actually a waste of time. When you realize that, because eventually we die, we leave all this behind. So no matter how attached you are, no matter how much you've accumulated, no matter what you've done, no matter if you've written the most books, performed the greatest experiments, had the best life, owned the greatest properties, you die. You leave it all behind. So there's no point getting attached to it. So a wise person who's understood that should not go out and criticize those who are engaged in the regular course of life. Have you ever been there where you had these realizations about something and you went out and criticized everyone else? I've been there. Tell me about your story.
I have a quick comment. I don't know if anybody else can relate, but I was I'm known around my life for somebody who always likes things that make them happy. So I'm constantly, like, my whole home is surrounded by things that make me happy, right? And they're beautiful and they bring me so much joy. But I always was looking for, what else can I get that's gonna be beautiful and make me happy in my home? Yeah. And I find myself now enjoying the same things that I was enjoying before, but with a totally different perspective. Like, I don't know if that makes sense. It's the same thing. Kind of when you just said that the same things that can put you in bondage can liberate you type of thing.
Yes.
I'm like, my problem was that I was enjoying all these material things. I was enjoying all these activities. But now I'm doing the same thing. I'm enjoying it as well, but from a totally different viewpoint.
Yeah.
Not a point of ABCD, you know. I don't know if I'm explaining myself right, but I'm still enjoying those things, but from a different perspective, not because of what they are. They make me happy in the moment, but I appreciate the energy they bring into my home, and how they make me happy on a deeper level. I don't know if I'm explaining that right.
So what you're saying is very true and very right on target. The idea is not that the things will make me happy, is that you are choosing to experience happiness even with the littlest things that you have. Is that accurate?
Yes, exactly. I'm not enjoying the thing
It's
anymore.
not it's regardless of the thing itself.
Yeah, I'm finding true like joy and beauty in those things, but it's not because they make me happy. You explained it better than me, but yes, that's exactly right.
The difference is that you think that I will get this thing and this thing will make me happy. That's one way of thinking. And the other way of thinking is, I have this thing. I'm going to take delight in what I have. Right? I have this backyard and I have these new growing plants in there. I'm going to take delight in that. The other is, I have to go to some perfect garden, perfectly manicured, or another country or another city, and there I shall find pleasure. There I shall find happiness. What you're describing, Andrea, is being able to find happiness wherever you are, with whatever you have. And that's a great art. And that's something all of us can practice, all of us can really get into, is learning how to enjoy the little things of life, the stuff that we do have, whatever possessions you have, whatever facilities you have, just a view that you might have from your balcony or patio or whatever it is you have, or whatever place that you can walk, wherever you are, can you find joy there? If you cannot find joy wherever you are, you will not find it anywhere else. If you cannot find happiness here with you now, then you won't find it with someone else. You'll bring your unhappiness to them. They'll bring their unhappiness to you, right? You'll go to some place in Europe for a holiday, and then you'll be irritated with the waiters, and you'll be irritated with the fact that it rained on that day, and oh my God, we came all the way out here and now it's raining. Our whole holiday has been ruined. So,
I'm finding joy right now.
right? Where are you right now?
On my terrace, sunning myself.
Sunning yourself. Beautiful. Got your green drink there. Fantastic. Yeah, savor it, enjoy it, relish it. Recognize that within all of that is the Spirit of God. It's right there. The very thing that is nourishing and nurturing is the energy of the universe. That energy is referred to as Brahman in the Vedas. That Brahman is an aspect of the divine. It is not the complete picture, but it is an aspect of the divine. You are as such communing with God. So the moment you join these pieces together, you begin to see, oh, it's not that I have to go to some temple, church, or mosque to find God. It is not that I have to go to heaven to meet God. I can meet God right here with the sip of that drink, with the ray of that sunshine. I am meeting with God right now, right here. There's not some big mystical thing has to happen, not some big enlightenment has to take place. The enlightenment is right here. Become aware of this very moment, the experience you're having of God.
I just have to ask, Nandini, where are you?
I'm in India.
Oh my God, it's just like, it's amazing. You're just sitting there going, oh, this is so great. And the sun is shining and like, where are you? It's dark here.
Right.
Awesome.
Morning. It's 9:15 in the morning, and it's winter. Well, it's spring in Delhi officially.
Uh-huh.
So we get to enjoy some sun.
The weather is more or less the same as we have in San Diego. I was comparing it because my parents live there as well, in Delhi. And so we were looking it over. It's more or less the same, highs and lows
Right now.
right now. Yeah, it will change drastically in India.
Yeah, we're going to get really hot really fast.
Yeah.
But we're enjoying. It's been a long winter
Hmm.
for us.
Well,
Yeah.
especially with COVID going on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And since we don't have heating in our homes and everything, we feel it more.
Hmm. That's right. And we don't have the insulation as well. So the winters are
Yeah,
more
only have
extreme.
some room heating which we switch on, when like evening or morning. We don't have it running all the time.
Yeah,
So we feel it.
right. Okay, chapter 3, text 30. Therefore, Arjun, surrendering all your works unto me with full knowledge of me, without desire for profit, with no claim for proprietorship, and free from lethargy, fight. So, what does this mean to us? And how can we take this? Surrendering all your works to the divine, to God, with full knowledge, without desire for profit or gain, with no claim to proprietorship, and free from lethargy. Engage in the activities you're doing. Why do you think this might be beneficial?
I think there is no other way.
Why do you say that?
Because anyway everything happens by not by our willing it to go in a certain way.
But we think it
Anyway
goes our way, no?
happening.
Don't we
So you
think
might.
we did so much work and now I've done so much and I did this and I did that and therefore I got this?
Yeah, but I think that this what you just read is I think the key phrase there is surrendering all your works unto me. So it's really surrendering to God, or
Right,
surrendering to your highest, or to the source energy, or whatever you want to call it. But because once you do that, then, and with full knowledge of God or source or
yeah,
your highest,
yeah,
that nothing else, you're not doing it for you anymore. You're doing it in a very elevated level that has nothing to do with your ego, or has very little to do with your ego.
right.
That's how I see that.
And why do you think that's beneficial? What effect does it practically?
I don't know anybody whose ego hasn't gotten them into a shitload of trouble.
There you go. That's a great answer.
Probably better to surrender to God.
Right? There's a freedom in it. There's a peace in it. There's a peace in taking in not being attached to what you're doing and not claiming proprietorship over it. Um, the the beauty of it is this, that you know how most of us suffer from stress? Anybody here knows
Yeah.
what I mean by stress? Yeah. So part of the stress is that we're working hard, okay? But a big part of it, of that stress, is, will what I'm doing be successful? Right? Will people like it? Will my bosses approve of it? Will my clients approve of it? Will it be if it's a business, then will the business be a success? There's so much attachment to that outcome. And that is causing a huge part of the stress. The work itself is often not as stressful, but getting it done on time, getting people to approve of it, getting people to like it, getting it to go the way it's supposed to go, getting it to be a hit and a success, yeah, that's the stress. Would you say? Would you agree with that?
I have an example as a teacher.
Uh-huh.
Every time I get the question, I give an assignment and they say, does this count for our grade? Or how much is it worth?
Right.
And them deciding whether it's worth doing or not.
Huh.
That's why they're asking me. So
Right.
I say, don't worry about it. I'm not going to tell you how many questions is it? How many points each question? I'm like, stop it. You can't itemize everything and decide whether it's the outcome is worth it or not, because time and time again they've done an assignment that didn't give them an A, didn't give them like the ultimate prize.
Right.
So it's funny how they do that, but I try actively to get them to don't think about it, don't look at the numbers. If you don't think about that, you'll do fine.
Yeah. One of the things you may want to tell them is this: I'm watching everything you do. It's not about the one thing you do. It's about how you do everything.
Yeah.
That matters. It's about the effort you put in. Somebody might get an A, but for someone else, maybe for them, okay, so for someone in who's really good at art, they might excel in that and get an A. And someone who's not good at art might get a D, right? Because they're not so good in art. But for them, a D is equal to your A because they put in a lot of effort to get that D. It was not easy for them.
Yeah.
That effort matters.
Yes, I shifted my grading to grading on completion. So it's basically grading on effort. Did you try?
Yeah.
I see that you tried all 10 problems. You're going to get 100%. Not everybody grades the same. Every teacher it's up to them. But
Okay.
that's a choice that I made, and people can disagree with it. But I teach kids with learning disabilities. So if I grade them based on how perfect they are, they're going to fail. And they're going to think that their effort isn't, worth anything.
I do the same thing with people who are in relationships and have relationship disabilities, which is most people.
That's all of us, isn't it?
Right, all of us. So one of the things I tell them when they talk about, how much do you put, I gave so much. I said, and then the other person, what did they do? Oh, they barely did anything. I said, then what were you doing? A relationship is one in which you walk together, where if you're giving your all, then choose a partner who also gives their all. That all may look different. One person may be good at cooking, the other person might be good at cleaning. Doesn't matter. What is your all? Give your 100%. Earlier there used to be folks who would compare things and say, in a relationship, 50-50. It never worked. People were measuring each other out. You did this and I did that, and should have done, you didn't do this and I didn't do. Nonsense. You give your all. And that's what Krishna is talking about in the Bhagavad Gita. Surrendering all your works unto me.
Right.
It's not about a little, it's everything you do. Like that song, Everything I Do It For You. Remember that song, Bryan Adams? Right? Beautiful song. If you haven't heard it, please do.
I'm going to say one thing. I don't say very much when I talk, but I am going to say one thing. What I like about this paragraph is it says without desires for profit, with no claims to proprietorship. And that, I think where it says without desires for profit, it means that you're giving from your heart and it comes from within.
Right.
And it's all from here.
Right.
And there's no expectation.
Yes.
There's no expectation. And so for me, what this paragraph does for me is it says, I'm doing this because it comes from here, because I want to, because it's coming from within.
Mm.
And there's no expectation of anything. I don't want anything.
Right.
I just want to do this because it's right.
That is so perfect. Imagine if we did our friendships like that. Imagine if we did our relationships like that. Imagine if we did our work like that.
Yeah.
Now, you know what happens? I'll tell you another really big problem. When people go to God, I'll start from there and then work our way back down to relationships. When they go to God, they pray to God, they go to the temple, they do whatever it is they do in the church, right? And then if things don't work out their way, they're like, God doesn't exist. God didn't care about me. I'm not important. As if your doing for God was meant to give you a certain outcome. No, never. Or that you gave or in a relationship, you gave so much to the other person and they were supposed to do something back. Firstly, put yourself in a relationship where you are with people who give to you. When it comes to God, think about this. Everything you have was given to you.
Yes.
The air you breathe is given to you. You did not manufacture this air. This body you live in was given to you. You did not manufacture it. You're not the owner of this body even. It's on loan to you. The air, the sunshine, the foods that grow, the soil in which they grow, none of that was produced by you. All of that was provided freely. Freely. It is man who has laid claim on it, is now is selling it to you in grocery stores and other places. But from the perspective of God, all of this was given to you. This body, everything was given to you free. You didn't pay a dime for it.
So you don't need to ask for it.
Huh? You didn't even have to ask for it, correct? Right? And now when you do something and you say, well, you didn't do for me, what? Everything was already done. You just reciprocated a little bit. You came and rang a few bells in the temple, or you said a few hymns in the church. Yeah, that's what you did. You're like the child who went up to their parent and brought the parent's shoes to the parent. Okay, sweet, very nice, very lovely. But does it mean that, suddenly the parent has to have a great obligation and duty and responsibility to give the child all the candy the child wants? No. So, Michelle, thank you so much. That was really nice.
That's nice.
Being able to do things from the heart, because that's really what it's about. I remember hearing this example when I was growing up. They would talk about these wise people who would give in such a way, and the expression used was this, that the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing, which meant that they gave, but there was no sense of, I gave so much to you. So some accountability, some expectation of something in return. No, none at all. I learned that the hard way, and eventually had to learn that to give whatever I was willing to forget about, to do as I was not willing. At the moment I came to a point where I'm going to start expecting something, stop. Stop right there. I've reached my personal human limit. I can stretch it, but I don't want to walk into that area where I start now expecting from someone, because that only brings me pain, and that only brings me disappointment. And I find myself feeling hurt and angry and frustrated, and that is not worth it. The joy of giving has been taken away. So I learned to start by giving a little and not expecting anything out of that. Just give give to the point where I could no longer not be expecting anything back. Then raise the bar, then raise the bar, then raise the bar. But if you find yourself dissatisfied that that other person is not reciprocating, then choose better people. But if you want to challenge yourself, go right ahead. Then know you're doing it for you. You're not doing it for them. Okay? Don't be giving and then feeling miserable afterwards. That's not serving you. Am I making any sense here? I don't know.
Totally.
Okay. Yeah. Give freely. Give joyfully. I sometimes say givers should be with givers. It's the most delightful thing. But givers often land up with takers. And they become very disappointed.
Quick comment. I don't know if anybody else relates. Saying out loud, I don't expect anything back. I'm going to give them this, but I don't expect anything back. And like, I swear that's what I'm doing. But then I always deep down on my own, I'm like, but it would be nice.
It would be nice, but here's the part you need to be in touch with. Then maybe you're giving to more than you're comfortable with. Find the place that you're comfortable with, and then exercise the muscle of giving without expecting. Do it for you, don't do it for them. Because those who are going to take and not give, that's their karma, that's their business, that's how they are. You're not going to change them.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
You know,
Those who are givers, they will automatically say, hey, you did this for me, I want to do twice this much for you. They're like that. It's very natural to them. Right? And there
And
are
it's
others who will just take and take and take and think nothing of it.
yeah, and it's like you seeing the beauty in giving. This was me like a few months ago, right? Me seeing the beauty and the power of giving, and like wishing that other people could also experience that, and not understanding why isn't everybody like this?
They're not
But
like this. This is different kinds of consciousness. But here's another part I'm going to tell you. Very, very important. Whatever you give freely will multiply in your life. Whatever you give freely will multiply and magnify in your life. Guess what I've been giving freely all my life?
what?
Whatever I learned, I would go out and share it with other people.
Yeah.
And I mean, now I've made it into something that is a bit, of a professional thing and so on. And I was starting to lose connection with that act of freely giving. And then I decided I have to come back to that, because that was my juice. That was what kept me going. It was so beautiful to give. That's why we have these meetups here. Um, the idea is to give without expecting anything in return. And so I can tell you this, that the more I gave, the more I received.
Right.
But if you give from that expectation that you will receive, then you're trapped again. Be careful.
Will you also speak, Rohit, to, because I like what you're saying, Andrea, and I think that when we look, I'd love for you to speak a little bit more, Rohit, about how when we are looking outwardly and saying that'd be nice to get that back, is probably something that we should be inwardly feeding ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Mariah, you've just connected the dots here. This is really great what you just said. The part where Andrea was saying that I still feel that I wish I would get that back means that there is a desire to get it back. And in that case, Mariah, you've just added the next piece of the puzzle there. Those are the things you need to give yourself, so that then your cup is full and then you can freely give. You cannot give from an empty cup. You can only give from a full cup.
That's what I
From a place of fullness.
Mm-hmm. It
So
started with literally physically giving myself a similar, like if I gave a gift, I give myself a gift too. But now it's more like non-physical.
Non-physical. It doesn't have to be a physical gift that you give yourself. It's just knowing that my gift is in giving it. My pleasure is in giving it. My happiness, my satisfaction is in serving you, in caring for you, in loving you, in giving to you.
And that counts for people you don't even know.
Exactly. That smile you give to someone when you're walking by them can be something very mechanical, but it can also be something very heartfelt. That hug you give someone, that now of course that's not the case, but that hug you give, that smile you give, that those words of appreciation you give to someone can be for no reason at all, just because that's what you choose.
Sometimes it's just a hello.
Right?
Yeah. And I think it's really sweet that even just to think about, like when you were saying, Andrea, that you had things in your house that that you had there to make yourself feel happy. I mean, that's like so almost subconsciously feeding yourself, because we need to feed ourselves, and so we can put things in our home or do things that would kind of outwardly feed us, but that the nourishment is, it's really so internal. It doesn't even have to have anything to do with what you have in your house. So those are really great signs about wisdom pointing to what you really need, which is to create that nourishment inwardly.
Right, because it sounds right. It sounds like I'm doing the right thing, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
It looks right, but it wasn't. The mark was off.
Yeah. All right, guys, let's end this meetup here and let's come back in a minute's time. All right, we'll continue with loving soulfully and relationships. So we'll end over here. Thank you, everyone. Craig, Mariah, Kara, everyone who was here. Nandini, I had to leave a little early, but Priyanka, I didn't hear from you, but thanks for coming. Rima and Michelle. And those of you that want to come back in, and Swati, if you want to come back in, I'll be back in just a moment. All right, I'm going to end it here and then start again.
Good night,
I'll join in about 5 minutes. I'll get in my car and start.
Sure. Absolutely. Love to have you back.
So
Thank you.
we have to disconnect and then reconnect?
Just stay there. I think you may not have to do anything. Just stay there and I'll be right back.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Maybe you have to reconnect.